the final experiment. I think there's a ton of things that you could do to verify the final experiment. You could look at the live streams at the time and see if they're reporting things that are happening contemporaneously to the events themselves, to see if they were live broadcasting at the time that they were saying they were. You can see if they're in the areas that they're purporting to be in by cross-referencing their live streams from Punta Arenas before and after the event. You could try and figure out how far away they could get from Punta Arenas, where they could go that looks remotely like the place that they're live streaming from later. And you could see if the live streams in Antarctica are in fact matching other photos of the area that we have of Union Glacier, and checking like shadows to see if those all correctly align with what we know about shadows in perspective.
Yeah, I agree. Then someone that went on it could come in and talk with you while they're there. You know, that helps.
Absolutely. Yeah, they talked to a ton of people while they were there.
Yeah, Witsit was in here while he was in Punta Arenas multiple times, and while he was in Antarctica as well. And he even shared his camera on the live stream here when he was there. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you guys think he went there?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure, dude. He live streamed it in here.
Yeah. And you think there's a 24-hour sun in the southern Antarctic Circle?
Yep.
And what they call Antarctica. Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Do you think it's like a ring around the disk?
Is what?
But you'd agree? A ring around a disc? No, that's not. That's like a straw man of the flat Earth. We don't really believe that.
You don't think the Gleason's map is accurate?
Oh no, the Gleason's map is like a accurate coordinate system. Yeah, definitely. It portrays the celestial sphere for sure.
So wait,
it's a globe map. You know that, right?
Yeah, it's like an AE map, but centered on the North Pole, right?
Yeah. So it's a globe map, right? It's all latitude and longitudes derived from the celestial sphere.
Yeah, but we know it's all distorted, or I very strongly believe that it's distorted in the South Pole to an incredible degree. Well, but you don't think that's the actual map of the world.
You agree all the measurements from north to south are correct, though, right? Like from the North Pole to Chile.
Well, they didn't went there to verify the map, right? What was the claim, and what was the purpose of that experiment?
The purpose was to confirm whether or not globe predictions would be correct, and to try and verify if flat Earth predictions based off of a Gleason's map were correct.
Right, with the 24-hour sun, right?
Yeah, exactly. There should be no 24-hour sun in Antarctica based off the Gleason's map. But if you're not holding to the Gleason's map, then
right,
what does the Earth look like?
But Geo could have saved them a lot of money by, I think, what you say, Geo, that you found a video that did the same, but it was not good enough, so they still had to go?
Yeah, 24-hour sun video. Yeah, I found one. Before the
yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a sun.
No, there's not. Well, not from Union Glacier. There's one in existence, and I found it. It took me hours and hours of digging and digging to actually find it, and it was at the end of the video too. It was like this kind of obscure skydiving company. They have a channel. It's only like 600 subscribers, and the video only had like 100 views or something when I first found it. And the 24-hour sun footage is at the end of that video too. It's at the end of the video. So what I was doing is I was going through tons of Union Glacier footage and just skimming through, to find any, footage of the sun. I was trying to find, I wasn't even expecting I could find 24-hour sun, but that's why it was a huge surprise I found it. But I was looking for just the sun in different positions and comparing everything and just going through. So the only reason I saw it at the end, it's not because I slowly watched the whole video, it's because I was kind of skimming, 5 minute, just skipping through and going through to see, to go through the different scenes. And that video actually was kind of a gem for this because it actually has a shot of the sun going in the southern sky behind that mountain, Mount Rossman. It has that, and it has two well, it's a 24-hour sun footage with a 360 camera, but there's like 2 cuts of it. So I guess technically there's 2. There's like 2 cuts. So yeah, it has the sun going behind that southern mountain, and then it also has the 2 cuts at the end. And it's funny because it says "thanks for watching" at the end, and then just "thanks for watching," and then it just goes to this little 24-hour. It was like a end cap to their whole video. They were like, "Thanks for watching," and then they just put the 24-hour sun footage at the end, which, as far as I know, it's the only other one that exists other than the trip those guys took.
Yeah, which is
So
pretty
what
cool.
map
Pretty cool
do you
way
guys
to end
have
the
a
video.
map that you hold to?
Well,
So,
like,
I mean, this was already. I'm just saying, like, I already was telling Witsit, and I mean, they're gonna see it. You know, as I was saying, is gonna see the 24-hour sun. So I mean, it wasn't really like a big shocker for me in that way. But what were you asking?
Do you have a map that you think the flat Earth looks like?
I don't have a full correct map of the Earth. I don't think anyone does, other than the military levels of things. I mean, has any civilian that you know or any of us know independently mapped it, or depending on the system, as it were?
Well, I mean, you can independently verify some of it, right? You can independently verify distances between what's it called, longitudes, because they should decrease from the equator towards either of the poles, right?
but
If
those are
the
all
globe Earth is correct, you can. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I guess you need
those
to figure
distance.
out, like, well, who wants to go back and forth? Because if there's a few people, because you're kind of, I'm not saying you're straw manning, because I know you're just saying certain points, but like, for example, I mean, I've never claimed the AE map is 100% correct map of the Earth. I have used it as a blueprint. It is good for showing various things. It is useful. Like, it does show like where the sun is at high noon at any position. It is accurate. Meaning, if when you can use that AE map, and when you have a friend in Ecuador, a friend over in Africa, etc. Like, when the sun is above them, it is accurate as a timepiece. Certainly in the northern region, southern, that's another question. But definitely in the northern it is, in that sense. So it's useful in some ways. But anyway, so I've never claimed that is the map of the Earth. But so yeah, if you're kind of expecting someone who's going to defend that exact, like the Gleason's map in particular with that sun path, then I guess you have to be someone that is in that position.
Well, no, I don't want anybody to defend a position they don't have. Sorry, go ahead.
Well,
No, that's all
McFingland.
No, I'm just saying.
I
All I
sent you
was
some.
saying is we should just clarify, like, yeah, who maybe if New Perspective wants to jump in. Go ahead, bro.
Well, I was just going to say I sent you some DMs, McFingland. I don't know if you are new to Discord or if you check your DMs at all from New Perspective.
No, I am new to Discord.
Yeah. Do you know how to check your DMs?
I'm driving right now, but I will look it up once I get done and like get my kids going on their stuff.
Yeah, no worries. I was just going to say, if you don't know, it's easy. Just go to the left side of your screen where all your channels are, your Discord memberships or whatever you're in. At the very top, there's a quote box, and if you click that, you'll see all the personal DMs. You may have to accept a friend request if you have it set to whatever that is. You accept the friend request, and then you can get the DMs. Otherwise, they'll just come through. It looks like it went through. But I was going to say, there's some things I sent you from Shane St. Pierre, who I think somebody else is recommending to you as far as like some of the questions you had. And there's some good videos I'll send you on from him as far as the Graticule, what's called the Graticule. You know what that is?
I can't say I've heard that term before. No.
Yeah, the Graticule. It's basically the grid of the lat longs that they made for the coordinate systems that all the GPS follows, and it's a way of following along with the lines of latitude and longitude, which don't really necessarily well, actually they're not physical on the Earth. What they did is they took the sky position of stars wherever you are on the Earth, and then because you see a 360-degree personal dome, naturally everybody does, right? Because we see 360 degrees around it, it looks like everything's curving around you. And then they use this technique called deflection to the vertical, where they would hang a plumb bob, and then they knew they needed a certain amount of curvature for the Earth, and they made the ground seem like it's curved because of the graticule that they made using the positions of the stars from each personal point on the flat Earth. And in the south, there's discrepancies with as far as like the actual distance between the longitude and latitude, or between the longitude lines. And that was a tricky part for them to cover up. And I think that's been a concerted effort, obviously, because it's one of the biggest proofs for the globe. It's like someone like yourself will come in and say, oh, well, the longitude and latitude, they decrease in the south. So it's just, it has to be a globe because look, the distances say this. But we had a guy that used to work for a space agency. He came in for a while and laid some heavy stuff down. And he was a complete globe believer working for the space agency. He realized the moon landings were fake and that they were faking the stuff on the ISS. And he was still like holding on to being a glober until finally, I think it was mechanical gyroscopes on airplanes that finally tipped him over. He's like, oh, okay, it's not a globe. And then he downloaded the ping data from all of the airlines for like 2 weeks, and he had millions of ping data, and he mapped it all out on the AE map, which is just a transform of that same Graticule with all the discrepancies covered for and made up for in their way that they do with spoofing the GPS and everything to make it seem like there's a lesser space in between the longitudes lines in the south. But anyway, when he mapped out the ping data from all the airplanes, he was showing that there was a 3-hour discrepancy between what they were reporting and what the ping data was showing him in the south. Not in the north, it all lined up there, but in the south, there was only a few airlines that actually took those routes. And, there's a whole lot they can do with the jet streams as well as the speeds of the planes. And I think, Gio, you were showing something last night where there were certain airlines or certain airplanes that have a longer distance that they can go. And those are the ones that use in the south. I don't know if you're still listening, Gio. But
Yeah. Dude, new perspective.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, bro, like that was on fire, dude. That was great. If I had to give a very just kind critique, maybe it was only a little bit long, only because it was like digestible to a point, but it was a lot of awesome information. But I'm just that's just like because I know I go on too long too. If I ever do, let me know as well. I'm not, so I'm just trying to say that. I know I'm kind of doing it publicly, but I also just saying that was so on fire, dude. Like that was amazing what you just laid out. It was a lot though,
Yeah.
and then there was, but yeah, and then you ended on. It was just a lot of points. But yeah, dude. No, that was,
you posted something last night about the airlines that there are certain airplanes that they use that have a longer distance they can travel
Yeah, so
and
let
are
me
only used in the south. Yeah.
let me post that if you want to. Well, because that was just a lot to digest, and maybe if someone wants to respond,
But that lends a lot to the whole
that was
idea.
awesome, though. That was awesome. And then no, but finish your point. If you want to keep going, that's cool. You got the floor.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say that also supports the idea that they're using they have to make it seem like the latitude lines are, getting like they mirror the north, because that'd be very important to convince people that they're on the globe, and so people see that and they're like, oh, these flat earthers haven't even looked at that. They must not even think that that's even a thing. But actually, people have looked into it, and Shane does a great job of laying out the Graticule. It's just a transform. So the AE map is just a transform of that Graticule with all of those, data points put in a certain place to make it seem like it's a ball if you put it in that transform. So it's just different ways of transforming the same Graticule that makes you have the illusion that the ground is curved when it's really just your 360-degree. Looks like the sky is curved around us, and that's how they tricked us into thinking it must be a ball, or keep people convinced, because they're like, oh, GPS works, it follows that Graticule, whatever that is, and then and that Graticule's showing us this like jail, this barred jail around the area that we know of, and they make it seem like we're on a ball. So that was a big thing about the trick that they did, and using this deflection to the vertical and saying that there's a mountain nearby that's making the gravitational potential of this plumb bob lean a little bit, which is like basically like putting their finger on the scale to make it work the way that they needed it to work. And there was a royal decree about nobody can make any maps unless you're following this coordinate system, and that coordinate system was like, this is locked in. And then once they attach the GPS to it, it really keeps people convinced, because they're like, oh shit, the GPS is following the ball. It's in this ball area, and I see a picture of a ball. I see the GPS I see the satellites going around, and it all must be true because it was a reverse engineered or backwards mathematically produced idea of a ball and convinces people that they're upside down relative to each other. And then the whole thing about refraction that we also discovered with the way that they keep the illusion of curvature with refraction in their theodolite measurements is the next big thing that's been talked about a lot in here with the celestial theodolite. I know that's a lot, but yeah, I'll send you some DMs, Fingland, since I think you actually seem sincerely interested to know why there's so many people that do not believe they're on a spinning ball any longer.
Sure. I'm sorry. I'm about to lose signal, and I got to pick up my kids. I appreciate that new perspective. I'll look at it, and I'll
Yeah, check
accept
your
your friend
DMs.
request.
I'll send
Thanks,
you
man.
some info for sure. No problem.
Appreciate
Take
it.
care. Yep.
Bye.
So the plane thing, just to go back to that, because there's a lot to unpack. So with all of that, it was a lot of good points, dude. That was awesome. So dude, like this one, it just shows how like the airplanes that are used for the flight from New York to Shanghai is a Boeing 777-300ER, which has a range of like 13,600 kilometers. And then here, I'll post it again since I'm reading it. I posted it before in the chat, but it was just on that point real quick. And then in the south, they use the Boeing for the Santiago to Sydney. They use the Boeing 787-9, which has a range of 15,300. And the 787-9 that goes in the south has a higher top speed as well. So I actually pulled that. That was from David Weiss's. I was watching that Flat Earth Roundtable, the thing that had. I was kind of been watching it at like 2x speed, just trying to see if I want to go through it. But yeah, I've gotten through the first like hour and a half, and then I saw David Weiss had mentioned this one, and he's got some good arguments at times and some good information at times. So, anyways,
Yeah, it does.
I grabbed it. I grabbed it.
Yeah, just the speeds that they can go too is another big point. Like if you're in a jet that can go 1,000 miles an hour, you know, then all you have to do is fly at 1,000 miles an hour south, and you know if you're not dipping down at that speed, and you know a lot, it would take a lot of dipping down very fast to go 1,000 miles an hour in one of those jets. Is one of the points that David Weiss brings up, as well as other people. You know, it'd be very easy to tell. You can't just use this gradual. Oh well, they must be dipping their nose down, or they're just in this layer, and it doesn't really matter if they dip their nose down. Not to mention my whole point again, of course, what I say is that they would have to be also moving faster eastward without any mechanism to make that happen at all.
Well, dude,
there's no
mechanism. This is an article in the Seattle Times about the 787-9, the one that does that southern flight. And this says right here that it reached 801 miles per hour going from Los Angeles to London.
Right.
Oh, but it was over Pennsylvania when it did this. So it got 800 miles an hour over Pennsylvania. What could it do in the south at different altitudes? It seems like that extra 200 is not surprising to be very possible.
It's funny because like the whole point that the ballers always make is you don't realize you're going 400 miles an hour or whatever in an airplane, right? Well, this works against that. That's true. You don't realize how fast you're going. So you could be going 800 miles an hour and you wouldn't even know it, even if you thought you were going. It's the same. It feels the same, right? So it's kind of like working. That makes sense. That you can be going.
Your mic's cutting out.
Oh, okay. You could just be going.
It's not that you're roboting. It's like your mic was like disconnecting. Your mic itself. Go ahead.
I was just saying that you could be going 800 and thinking you're going 400, and it wouldn't feel any different, which is probably what they're doing.
You mean that the pilots are even tricked, or you're just saying it would feel?
Oh, there's only certain pilots. There's only certain pilots that actually make those southern routes. Only certain actual airplanes that make those routes, and yeah, the pilots would be in on it, but there'll only be a few. Is what the point was that model builder was making.
Yeah. There's only a few of those real southern flights like that. Yeah. Dude, that's why why don't we need to fly our own plane? Before going on the ocean and measuring the distance on the ground, we just need to fly from like Punta Arenas over to Sydney. You know, from
I
South
guess. I mean,
from
we
South
already know
America
we already,
to
yeah.
Australia.
If you had to like actually go to that extreme, you could have somebody, do that like on some kind of kamikaze mission or whatever. Like, some kind of, don't care if you get
You think they would stop you? Well, wait a minute
flag.
though. If you own your own plane or if you charter your own plane, I mean, can't you fly anywhere on the globe?
I
I mean,
don't
not
know.
even that. Like,
I bet those southern routes. I bet there's restrictions in the south.
just for regular people, like let's say you're just a
Yeah,
billionaire
probably.
and you're a billionaire, you buy a jet and you want to fly right to Punta Arenas, you're paying for everything. Billionaire, they bought his own jet. They're flying to Punta Arenas and they're saying, "I'm flying right now to Sydney, Australia from right here." I mean, you know what
I
I
don't
mean? Like,
know.
is that illegal?
Look it up. I don't know.
Look it up.
I
No,
would
I've never
guess
heard
that
of
there'd
that
be
being illegal.
restrictions. I
They're
would
gonna.
guess for this very reason there might be restrictions for this very reason.
I think you can. I think you just have to follow the highways or whatever. You know what I mean? Their paths. That's it.
Well, then, I mean, then that would imply that if people have independently been doing that more so than just these flights, then that would imply that those continents are not spread out the way that they would be with that azimuthal projection of everything going out. If that was the case, I'm saying, wouldn't that imply that?
Well, the problem is with the azimuthal projection, like I was saying before, it's still the graticule that they made to make it seem like we're on a ball. So the continents, sizes, and all of the coordinate systems aren't going to be correct when you use the azimuthal projection. And it's not going to be correct because it's already incorrect because it's based on the graticule that made everyone think they're on a ball.
Yeah.
All right, but
What's
for a
that? What's
planar surface Earth with the layout, okay, are there any more than these two options? The pole at the center with everything coming out planar from it, or like a two pole with like a figure eight sun kind of thing, that two pole
Yeah,
one.
which
So
the
are
two
there, but I
pole
mean,
one could
which,
still, yeah,
which
the two
that one
pole
has a
one is
whole
also
other
the
question to
graticule.
it. No, I know, but I'm
But
just saying, are there
that two
any other
pole
than
one is
those two? Sorry, dude. Are there any
so
other than
yeah.
those two that are being considered? That's my question. Are there any
Well,
other than
the
those two?
thing is there's a nuance to it because it's based on the graticule. That was the ball graticule. It's all going to be off already from the real distances because it's not a ball and it's based on a transform of that ball graticule. So yeah, it's flat, obviously, but the distances between continents and the size of the continents is probably unknown or not allowed to be known because otherwise you would know it's not a ball. So
yeah? Like,
you
have you?
can lay it out like an AE map, but the continents could be different sizes and different distances from each other, and we would never be able to cross check it because you're using the graticule that was based on the ball coordinates, which aren't correct.
Yeah, have you seen that one map, Geo, that Shane will portray? It looks like the AE, but then the longitude lines converge towards the point of Chile, towards the point of Africa, and towards the point, of Australia and whatnot. So it's like those longitude lines, they don't even show or in the oceans at all. They're just literally on the continental land.
Are you talking about the Pierce quincunxal? Like this
It's
projection? Are you
got
talking
a
about?
weird
'Cause I
name.
don't know
It's
which one
got
you're referring to. Are you talking about this
no.
one?
It's similar to that. It is very similar to that in it's called like the hecto. I can't remember. I'm gonna look it up for you.
But it's like it makes four poles out of the continent? Because the thing is, like,
Yeah,
okay,
see,
first of all, like, well,
it
like
could
new
totally
perspective,
be that.
like, I don't think we can
It
really
could totally
contest
be that,
this.
Joe.
Like, you can be okay. Are you contesting that there's North and South America, and then there's Africa and Europe? Like, you agree that
No, not
they're
at
I mean,
all.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
obviously
know. That's what I was
spaced
just gonna
out. Like,
say. What you just posted could totally be correct, right? They don't. There's like this huge spaces in between the actual lines that they're not accounting for, but they're fudging it by making planes go faster. We even had people that
well,
were
this
in the
would be
military and the Navy saying that it took a lot longer than they thought it would in the South from one place to another, and all these things that make it obvious that they're covering up distances in the South.
okay. Yeah. Well, a quadrupole would have to pretty much potentially have four quadrupole suns if that's what it was. It would have to have four
No. What I'm
in
saying
four
is
different regions, four different quadrupole 24-hour suns in the south.
right, but if you're looking at just those lines and it goes out four different directions, that doesn't mean you have to have four suns necessarily. That could just be the way the continents are laid out, and those longitude latitude lines are what's on the ground, and up in the sky it's still a circling sun. That you have a personal dome that you see. You know, you're just like the Walter Vislin map works. You still see the sun circling around, but there's this like uh, another effect that goes when you get out towards the outside. If there is a firmament, you know, that could cause all kinds of effects of what the sun looks like it's doing and what it's actually doing and how low it gets and what altitude you're at. But I'm just saying for the continent layout, it could be a lot more distance between continents, and the continents could be different sizes in the south. But there'd be no way to check it if you're using the Graticule because it's already based on the ball coordinates, which are skewed purposely to make it seem like a ball. So that's all I'm saying.
Okay, so you're just so a 24-hour sun. You're describing that. How does that work with that? I mean, how
Well,
would that be the case?
there could be an effect where you're still seeing it, and you're out towards the edge. You're still seeing it go around you, but you're at a certain. You're higher up. You're a higher altitude in Antarctica, and the angle that you're at for those certain days that you're seeing a 24-hour sun. There's only a couple days in that one particular area. I don't know if you've seen Space Busters thing on the 24-hour sun in Antarctica, or there's another one. Actually, Michael Brenner did a whole write-up of those about the areas. There's other areas in Antarctica where you do not get the 24-hour sun, and you should if there is a 24-hour sun. That in the way that the ball tries to make us think there is. Could still be one spot that you see that 24-hour sun for a couple of days, but if you went to the other side of Antarctica, you know, then you wouldn't see that 24-hour sun, and you should. There's a whole like couple things I'll post about that. Regardless, it's interesting because Antarctica could be its own continent. That's what I've been saying since 2017 when you know E1 was showing his map that he thinks works the best. He says, I think that Antarctica is its own continent. We could still be surrounded by ice, right? But Antarctica is its own little island continent still. And that could be like another thing that what we've been saying ever since 2017, like, oh, they're gonna show that Antarctica is its own continent and say flat Earth is dead. And that's pretty much what they try to do with this 24-hour sun by saying, oh, it has to be a ball because of the 24-hour sun, so flat Earth never worked. And that's a straw man of a model that not everyone was on board with. In fact, E1 left the conversation because he's like, oh, this is disinformation that's being implanted into the flat Earth community to eventually be broken down and shown the opposite so that it's like a 10-year plan like people have talked about.
Okay, so the thing you were saying, well, where's there evidence that that there's not? Because I mean, there's 24-hour sun at like Assmptns, where it's like, you know, it's supposed to stay like 23.4 degrees, and there is like the Robert Powell or Robert Schwartz guy, or no, I think it's Anthony Powell for that one. He's the one who has that. I think the only one who has that footage or claims it of the 24-hour sun at Assmptns. But are you saying there's evidence you're claiming that there's not 24-hour suns in other areas?
You know, I'll have to review those more carefully myself to talk about the particulars. But for now, I'll just post the links because I'm about to drive anyway. You can check them
Yeah, I've
out.
also seen some debunks of that, but yeah, I've seen there's
Have you?
already.
Okay, I haven't. Yeah, post those too, please.
Well, I think didn't Stone get into it with him? He did.
I don't know. Did he? Okay, with who?
Yeah, asked Stone. He did a whole exchange, and yeah,
With get into it with who?
the Space Busters, and that.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
With
Could
all the
never
claims
saw
of
that.
like the angles of the rising and setting sun don't fit for Antarctica, something along those lines.
Oh, okay.
That whole thing.
That's interesting. I'm surprised I missed that. What was that? When was that? And was it on Ether Cause? Well, when did the Space Busters guy talk to Stone?
I'd have to go. I think it was on Twitter, but I'd have to go double check.
Yeah, it would be interesting to hear.
I mean,
that.
it was in a public. It was in a public thing. I mean, so yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was Twitter. I'll have to ask the guys. They'll know. Cool. Well, yeah, two different viewpoints on what's actually happening in the South. There was a Michael Brenner article that I haven't read all the way through, but he seemed to be saying a similar thing to what the Spacebusters guy was. So yeah, we should look into that and either debunk one or give one consideration more. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, dude, the sun, like even at the equator, you know, when the sun starts going south of the equator, it arcs off to the left. So, like that just doesn't fit an AE map. And I know the idea of a parent sun, but I don't see any reason why it would start arcing completely something opposite of what it's supposed to be doing, which is if it's supposed to be just doing complete concentric circles like that, like circling like that, there'd be no reason to be arcing off to the left. And then even when you
You know
get
what's
further south,
interesting?
it arcs more, it arcs more, it arcs more. And when you keep going south, you get a 24-hour sun. And that's the same thing that happens in the north. If you were in the same way, like you were only at, you know, a certain latitude, you know, 50, whatever, and then you went to 70, 80, all the way, it would be the same. It's the same thing reversed. It keeps setting in the south, it keeps rising and setting more southeast and more southwest the more you go south. And in the north, when the sun's going north, it rises more northeast and sets more northwest the further you go north until you get the 24-hour sun in the north. So like
Well,
that
dude,
already just doesn't fit with that circling sun. So like that
Gio,
arc
Yeah,
pattern is already happening.
you're
So to think that
psyoping
that's
yourself, Gio.
to think that that is not happening in all that southern region, and there's a place where there isn't a 24-hour sun would be very conflicting with that geometry.
right. And
Yeah.
I think there's an opposite claim. I just saw something by Russian Vids that was claiming that it arced the opposite way that it should for that where you see it in Brisbane. Um, and so if there's two different opposite claims showing the sun arcing one way or arcing the other, others say that it doesn't matter that the arc, because there was a whole thing about the two pole. I think I sent you that video with the two pole idea, and the sun would arc the opposite. It doesn't arc the right way for the two pole idea. And then I brought that up to Alan, and he said, "No, it's still your personal dome. It's going to make it. It's going to make it seem the opposite." So we'll have to figure out this arcing sun and which way it actually goes. But Riggs, what were you going to say?
Yeah, like when you say the sun is arcing off, like I use it liberally, but in reality, it's you're kind of like you're kind of psyoping yourself because the observation of the sun is a straight line over the sky. I mean, there are very few conditions where you could make an argument that it's appealing to one direction or the other, but as far as we see it, it just makes a line over us.
Yeah, but Gio makes a valid point. Like, for example, someone in New York who's further away from the Tropic of Cancer in summertime on June 21st has more hours of daylight than me in
Okay,
Florida. And
that's
then,
light though. That's not
yeah,
the sun.
they see the sun for a longer amount of time in the sky. And then, so I'd love to do this experiment with you guys. If on June 21st down here, I'll take a cardinal direction to the sun, and I'm going to guess that it's going to set north of east. But if you're up north, it would have to set even further north of east than down south.
Okay. But I mean, you guys know, you agree, right? Like we see a concentric circle, we see a line in the sky being drawn. It's not discernibly arcing any direction for the majority of what we observe. Like I've seen stuff like in the desert where, you know, you could make the argument that, you know, it's shrinking from the left side, but it's still following the line of the right side. So to me, that means it's arcing off to the right. But visually, there's no way I mean, visually, it's strictly just a line going across the sky.
Yeah. Would you agree? Would you then claim the stars are also planar? Then, since the sun path is planar with the illusion of rising and setting, so the Polaris would be doing the same thing, and all the stars would be planar.
I can't make a claim about the surface or the nature of the stars, but I can say that their position is being projected onto something which is then interacting with our atmosphere. So that's totally separate.
So I thought you
Well,
just
the
made the
sun.
claim.
You were saying the sun makes a line. What do you mean? Because it does make a complete arc.
Slightly
Like it arcs up through the sky. Like if you're looking north at Punta Arenas, you
I
you have to
also
look.
sent a message to her. I was like, hey,
You have to like look if you're looking north and then you look due east, the sun is going to rise. You have to go further east. You have to turn more to your right. And when they have like an 18-hour sun, some of those footages like in Antarctica, the sun rises even more south of east, like way south. Like you have to turn your head like all the way to actually see it, and then it literally arcs, like it slowly comes up around, almost like maybe like the idea of like the rings of Saturn or something like that in that way, meaning it's not like a straight line.
Yeah.
Because I wanted, what did you mean by that, Riggs? Because it's more like a radius arc that comes up, because it rises like over behind your right shoulder. It comes up and it'll reach a certain degree, like, you know, if you put your hand like from your eyeball, like 45 degrees up, whatever the elevation angle is at that time, and then you kind of keep going, and then you go down to your left, and then it goes all the way past your left shoulder and rises south of west. And it's that arc pattern that ends up being that 24-hour sun pattern. It's the same that happens in the north in that sense.
What I'm saying is that besides the 24-hour observation, you can't, without actually being able to see the sun, there's no way to determine if it's appealing to any particular true direction, like if it's dead reckoning in any direction. Because yes, if you're using cardinal magnetic, lines, those are going to turn towards the field anyway.
Well, let me
as
ask
far
you
as
this.
the sun,
Well, can you see the image I'm going to put in chat right now? Are you able to see it?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so would you agree, like that's from Punta Arenas, or roughly? So would you agree that like that, I know it's kind of faint, but that yellow line, like on that little celestial sphere dome thing, there's the yellow line, and there's the actual sun, like the circle of the sun, but then it is very faint, but there's the yellow arc pattern, and that's that south of east, south of west. So you agree it makes that arc pattern?
Yes, but you see how the arc pattern is on a visual plane, so it looks like a line in the sky it's drawing, like a straight line.
Okay, yeah, like a planar. I see what you mean. Not like a straight line, but like a planar arc kind of.
Right. Now, I'm willing to admit that's optical, but it is how they're able to get away with it, because from down here and with our size, everything's going to appear a certain way, and that's just how it does it down here. So,
all right, well, okay, now this is where the breakdown happens. Not necessarily for you, Riggs, but for any like people if they're going to say there's not a 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Right, what I'm about to say right now is where that is, because that last one I just posted, I'm going to post the second one. That one, like the last one, shows that arc of in Punta Arenas, and anyone can go there and verify that. I mean, it happens in Australia too. So anyone in Australia, I mean, this is not that it's just anyone any day can. As long as the sun's at that time of year and so on. So, anywhere in the south, that's the case. And then this last one I'm going to post, that is from 80 degrees with the 24-hour sun. That's from Union Glacier. So now that sphere has kind of leveled out, as it were, a little bit. And then now that arc pattern, it would have been very rising south of east, south of west. But obviously this kind of jumped to where you would get the actual 24-hour sun. And then that obviously also correlates. Well, yeah. So anyway, I'll just stop there for a second. So that's kind of where the breakdown happens, because even if people say there's not a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, like I said, that first one I posted, the Punta Arenas, or anyone in Australia, anyone can verify the sun is doing that. So they then have to say, yeah, it's still doing that, even though it is actually going around concentric circles on an AE map, if that's what they're claiming. But then that's what the actual sun is doing. In reality, and then if you just level it out, it goes to the 24-hour sun in the south. And then I guess I will just post this last image. I was just trying to find it because, but this one, oh yeah, here it is. It's just the last one. Shows like, I'll just finish it off by just showing. This one shows what it is like at the equator, which is where it's all straight. The sphere is kind of tilted in that way, celestial sphere, and you get the straight line sun and all that. And then this is what it is at the North Pole. It just shows the kind of reverse of the Punta Arenas one. So yeah, so anyways, but that's where that breakdown is. But like, there would have to be some reason that it's rising south of east, south of west, even if someone still wanted to claim the AE map with the one circling sun, or there's something additional, going on.
Funny because if we had to talk about the 24-hour sun like proving the globe model, then we'd have to establish that the Earth is rotating first.
That's a good point, and has curvature, yeah. But that is a great point.
Yeah, but
Yeah, because if the
there's no
cause of the 24-hour sun for the globe model is Earth rotation, then you'd have to actually prove Earth rotation to have that even be a viable theory.
Correct.
that's part of the deception, is that the theorization or the hypothesization is self-evident on its own logic. So they think that that answers the burden of proof because you can imagine it so. Like with the case example of the earlier conversation that I had, Gio, I think you were present. So just because they can invoke an imaginary circumstance, that said imaginary circumstance can supposedly now be used as an actual position to the burden of proof, when in actuality one is just hypothesizing. And then they say, yeah, well, hypothesization is, important for... Okay, sure. They forget their own reasoning and how it's, well, reasoned. That's the problem.
Yeah. Although, I mean, for Earth rotation, they do have some, the Sagnac effect is a thing, and it does imply that there's some kind of emotion occurring. Not emotion. There's a motion that it is occurring. That the Sagnac effect. That doesn't mean it's the motion of the Earth. The question is it the motion of the Earth or the motion of the ether? Essentially, a lot would say. Or if anyone has any other thoughts, because if you have a stationary surface, stationary Earth, you still would have to explain the Sagnac effect. And we know we have the stars, the sun and the moon, the whole field is moving and all of that. So, but it is, in my viewpoint, it's a misinterpretation that the gyros are, when they pick up the Sagnac effect, I think it's a misinterpretation that's picking up Earth rotation. I think it actually is picking up the motion of the actual ether itself and the actual way that functions. However, these gyroscopes also are very good at detecting motion. Like they're used in airplanes and all kinds of things because they're so good at detecting motion. Therefore, on the globe side, for them to accept that the gyroscope is picking up Earth rotation is actually logical to a point.
So didn't they measure a change in, well, the gyroscopes, I heard that some of those are depending on altitude. And I do have a video that somebody was messing with a very high power gyroscope, like showing no motion. And if it's altitude dependent, or like with the pendulums, if they depend on like the eclipse, there was a
Exactly.
time where they found that the eclipse changed. So if it was rotation, then it should not depend on any external factors.
Exactly.
Just
And
like,
that's where it would break down. Yeah.
and just like the same thing with like the theodolites, like if it actually is Earth curve, then we should not have like this variation if it's attributed to Earth curve instead of refraction. So, these things have to be consistent. Because if they're variable to change, like with altitude and the gyroscopes, or with the solar eclipse and the pendulum, or with refraction and the drop over distance, like if those change very easily depending on like the conditions around them, then we need to further question if that's like measuring something that is supposed to be consistent. And I was just reading just now that there's like no standard refraction in the lower atmosphere, which is what we're all viewing everything from. So how can, we make any definitive claims about things like drop over distance? But it seems like, some of the results are being extrapolated. And because something is there, like we don't know what it is, you know, it's being extrapolated to say, yeah, this is measuring some very consistent pattern. But if those patterns are going to depend on the environment around them, then can we actually attribute them to what we're claiming is some consistent phenomena like drop over distance or motion? That'd be my question.
It's not Earth curve, it's just curved visual space. Oops, sorry, I just got a phone call.
Whoa.
My bad.
What's up, B Stackles? The BS Stackles.
What
I'm
up?
just trying to make up different. I was trying to make up a new explanation. No, I had thought of a different one lately. Dude, there's so many. Your name. Like they have like the Inuit, how they have like hundreds of names or words for the name snow. That's like your name, dude. There's like hundreds of like ways to pronunciate it. But yeah, go ahead, dude.
Yeah,
What's up?
No, I was just saying, I was watching Jeranism yesterday. Pretty painful, but he had Jesse Path of Light on, and Jesse did his whole presentation.
Brutal.
And there was actually one point where he took a series of measurements with his theodolite on a ridge and then watched this boat travel by. And he says he measured left to right curvature, and you look at his graph, and it's literally identical to how visual space is demonstrated, like how curved visual space works.
I saw that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally like to attribute that to Earth curve rather than how your vision works or how optics work. Like, there's no differentiation. They just basically say, oh yeah, that curved visual space, that's because Earth is curving. But there's no real mutually exclusive evidence for that. And he actually measured the left to right, quote unquote, curvature. But I mean, you have to take into account, for example, if I'm looking at a mountain range 10 miles away from me, and it appears that the clouds are touching the mountains, in reality, I know that they're not actually touching the mountains. What is that phenomenon? How are you just going to discount curved visual space? You get what I mean? Like, they don't ever take that into account.
Yeah, also like the further away something's gonna be at the consistent atmospheric gradients, like you're gonna see things drop more the further away it is. Just
Exactly.
because humidity and temperature as well, like on top of that. So like either way, if you're looking left, right, and straight ahead, whatever's further away is gonna be predictably dropping over distance. And that's what I've been researching lately.
If only we had a way to differentiate and have mutually exclusive evidence, like maybe using a star getting occluded by a mountain peak.
They think the stars are being refracted, bro. So crazy. It's some standard refraction which does not exist in the troposphere where we're at. So it's just
It doesn't matter. There is they can't use refraction to basically change the timing of when the star gets occluded. In reality, it gets occluded at a certain time. One measurement matches flat Earth prediction, the other doesn't match globe.
Yeah, it's good that
that.
one of the key things about that being time is that when you have like what they call the celestial sphere, or like the whole circle of the sky, sphere of the sky, etc., like there's a start and an end point, meaning that star is going to set every day. So there's a beginning and an end, that 23 hours, 56 minutes for the solar day. So if you're measuring a time there, that time, however many seconds or however long it is, fits within that 23 hours and 56 minutes, which is the stellar day, the sidereal day. So
Sidereal, yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that you're measuring a time means that, like, if they're going to say that's refracted in any way, well, are you just refracting all of time now? Like, is all of time, you know what I'm saying? Like, then it warps it all out, and then you wouldn't have a consistent 23 hours, 56 minutes. You would have something that everything's warped all the time, you know, so it wouldn't even fit within time. It
They
breaks
can't get
down like the
around
way
it.
time works. Yeah.
Yeah, they can't get around it. It's really solid. And
Yeah,
even
that's another.
I was gonna say, even the two discrepancies that Jesse pointed out, okay, sure. Two of them, quote unquote, are closer to the globe, right? But he still didn't give a timing measurement to confirm that, right? And then you're talking about 37 out of 39 other observations. Like, and he completely danced around the question, never wanted to address it. I asked him like 6 times. I'm like, okay, so what about the other 37 observations? Never answered it. Like, it's not just one.
Daylight savings like refracted time?
You know what I noticed on
What?
that stream? Well, dude, I noticed that was I mean, I don't really watch Jaren, but I do see little bits here and there, and then sometimes I do when he goes live, I at least just kind of click just to see a little bit for a second or two, but I don't really listen too much usually. But usually, you know, he's getting like 300-400 viewers usually. But on that Jesse one, it was like it was capped at like 160 people. That was like the lowest like viewed I've ever seen Jared, like at least for the, you know, since Antarctica for sure. I don't think he's had a lower viewed stream. And then it was Jaren basically just completely like conceding to Jesse Gordon on like pretty much every point. And just, I mean, I didn't really watch the whole thing, but I did watch little parts of it. But I mean, Jaren was basically just accepting all of it. It seemed like he was just like, oh yeah, you're measuring. There it is. I mean, it was, yeah, it was pretty, and Jesse was going over like just the same stuff he's gone over in here for years. I mean, like the seeing over a sign that's like whatever, it's a couple hundred feet away or whatever, and bending over, and he's claiming, oh my god, he went through all that and brought out all of his images. And
I know, dude.
Oh my gosh, and Jaren's just conceding to all of it, like.
Even the one where like he was looking through the fish tank, right, and the different air, and he's like, well, look, I can see the blue roof, but you know, through the fish tank, and then I see the blue roof outside of the fish tank. And you see how there's a different, you know, it looks different. Yeah, it's refracted. Yeah, you're looking through a fish tank. That's glass, bro. Like, of course it's refracted. You're looking through glass in one take, and then the other side, you're not looking through glass. So, yeah, obviously, it was ridiculous. But, yeah, it was painful to watch Jaren just, I don't know, man. I think he's just super upset. Like, he's just upset. And he's taking out all his anger on the flat Earth community.
Like I say, Jesse's got a pretty thick pair of glasses to be making all these observations.
Well, the next level is now, I'm glad that you come to the realization, Beasticles. The next level is now, why do we suppose that we live in a container? Because we created an artificial environment where we pressurize gas.
All right, well, I don't know. That's kind of a topic shift. Are we shifting to that? Well, because